Good Monday morning. It is 10:16 here at the KRVN studios, powered by Dustin O'Hanlon, your local Channel C Pro. Tyler Cavalli, Jacob Roth along with you here on the Midday Show. It's a beautiful start to the day with temperatures across the heartland right now in the mid to upper 60s, almost 70s from central to eastern Nebraska. Down in Kansas, we're seeing clearing skies, temperatures in the low to mid 60s there. Northeast Colorado just a tad behind in the low 60s, but also only in the 9 o'clock hour out west. Well, we mentioned top of the show, Jacob, that we have a big announcement, some exciting news.
That we do.
And it is, I think, time to unveil it, right?
I feel like instead of we could drag it on. We meant 10:15 Mountain Time, actually.
That's right.
So it's actually going to be next hour.
Well, we are officially excited to announce Steve White, who is our new KRVN Farm Director and officially starting with us here at KRVN and the Nebraska Rural Radio Association today. Congratulations and welcome aboard.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks, Tyler and Jacob. I'm thrilled to be here.
So for those that are saying or around the region, know you from your former days at NTV just down the road, from around the area covering ag. And for those that don't maybe know about you, Steve, talk a little bit about your background.
Yeah, and I have a feeling a few people are going to be like, I think I've heard this guy somewhere before. Where do I know this guy from? So no stranger to being a farm broadcaster in central Nebraska. I've been in the area for almost 27 years. Sorry, Jacob, not to make you feel old here or something.
Okay.
You feel like the baby, right? And I feel like the old guy.
No, they pick on me a lot.
So we do it all the time anyway.
Right. So, now I'm at the point where I've done this long enough. People are like, I've grown up watching you on the news. And I'm like, and you're a grown adult yourself now. Like, oh man, that means I'm getting old there or something. But, no, so I am a native of South Dakota, and we can talk about that in a moment because that takes, what happened over the weekend is of interest there. But so I grew up and went to South Dakota State University, home of the Jackrabbits. And it was interesting. My first broadcasting experience was radio, doing college radio, and which was a little different than the technology we've got here today. I was playing carts.
Oh, yeah.
You put like a cart in a thing and had to hit play on we had buttons, like physical buttons. Now if people saw the studio here, everything's just digital and you just click on a mouse.
Computer screen. It's one
computer screen, right. Yeah. So I had to be juggling multiple things. But anyway, my first TV experience then was all programs that deal with agriculture. We did a 30-minute market show, which sounds interesting. Sounds familiar, right? It's like people are like, this sounds a lot like what KRVN does.
That's kind of what we do here.
It sounds like, yeah. So I did this thing and I'm like, well, I'm never going to need this skill again. What's the odds I'm going to be doing farm markets the rest of my life, So I'm running cameras and audio board for that. And this is a good experience, but when am I ever going to actually use this in real life? I mean, how many times do college students, or, when you're even in elementary and high school and stuff, you're like, I'm learning stuff I'm never going to use. And, lo and behold, look what I'm doing for a living now. So, yeah, it's funny how things change, but some things are still the same. So I grew up in a small town, and while I didn't come from the farm, everybody you go to church with, everybody you hang out with, you just kind of you take for granted, I think, when you come from a small town that everybody has that exposure, and when you go over to somebody's house and they're like, oh, I got to go check the cows, I got to go check this, got to check that, got to do this, got to do some chores. It's second nature, isn't it, in a small town that's life. But I've now known a lot of people who did not come from small towns and did not come from that way of life and have learned that's not normal for everybody. So we take for granted. So interesting enough too. I also grew up a Husker fan. My dad had gone to college at the University of Nebraska, Lincoln, and so those were the good days, Jacob, when Nebraska was good.
We're getting back there, I promise.
Yes. I grew up a Husker fan as well as a Jackrabbit fan. I'm quite familiar with Memorial Stadium and the Sea of Red and all the Husker traditions. Grew up around that before coming to live here, and have called Grand Island home for 25 plus years now. So I think I can call myself a Nebraskan at this point.
There you go. You are going to be covering a lot of different events, things happening in the community, which will be really exciting for us, and taking some different steps forward as well. Again, Steve White being introduced today as our new KRVN Farm Director. We're really excited to have you on because, again, not only will people already know maybe who you are as well, you already have the connections, the journalism aspect of it, but just understanding the rural way of life.
Right. I think that's just so important. And I think You look at the farm and ranch sector drives this state. That's what drives our economy, is the decisions the guys need to make day in and day out. And people need good information to make those marketing decisions. And is it time to rebuild the herd? All these different things you're thinking about. You need good information. And I think that's why you leave 880 on in the vehicle all the time, right? Because you're always going to learn something.
Yeah, and you obviously did a lot of outside of just the ag side, but more in the ag communities and the different things. What's that going to look like? Or I guess you're going to continue to do that from what I understand?
Well, I hope I get to do some of that. I really just enjoy... I've always said that rural communities deserve good quality journalism and reporting. I think just because you live in a small town doesn't mean you should just get ignored. I think if there's something really cool going on that happens, I think people need to hear about that too. And I'll give you an example. A couple of years ago, they built a sod house in Broken Bow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Kevin Cooksley, I believe, was a former board member for the Nebraska Rural Radio Association. Shout out to Kevin and Shannon. They just had their branding over the weekend. Adam Smith was there from K-Bear. No, but I've been there in the past.
Okay. All right.
But they built a sod house in Broken Bow, Nebraska.
Yeah.
And I thought, and the guy from the local feed store is there. And, I mean, they've all got ag connections. And that's just really cool because they want to preserve their Western way of life, that heritage. Mm-hmm. And I think sometimes those things need to be documented. People need to know about that stuff. It doesn't all have to be stabbings and shootings and drug busts. I think chronicling rural life in rural Nebraska is important. And if there's something that's cool that's going on that needs to be celebrated, a bunch of farmers and ranchers get together and build a sod house over a weekend, I think that's worth letting people know about, in addition to all the market stuff and all that stuff too. So,
speaking of celebrating a rural community, how about Ord? That was the place to be on Saturday,
Ord? That was the place to be. 1,700 people packed into the Ord gym as the Husker volleyball team came there, and the ag teacher, Mr. Dave Ferentz at Ord High School. People will probably know his name. I think that guy knows everybody in the state of Nebraska, and he's one of those guys, isn't he? If you've met Dave, you know what I'm talking about, because he's always got a smile on his face, and he calls me up and says, you know what, Steve, I'm going to be driving a tractor, shuttling people to the game, and I can't go to the game, and I've got a pair of extra tickets. Would you like the tickets?
That's awesome.
And I said, that would be great. Just understand, I'm going to be wearing the wrong color.
That's right, because if you know, or if you have been following Steve for a while now on social media, he is as you mentioned already, a South Dakota State jackrabbit. And you don't hide it, which is awesome.
No, and I think, honestly, UNL, SDSU, they're both land grant schools with great, roots in animal science programs and agronomy and preparing leaders for rural communities. So I think there's a lot of parallels. In fact, there's a lot of guys, especially in the cattle sector around here, there's a lot of guys who actually have, who are jackrabbits themselves. Yeah. It's not unusual that I run into some around here. So I take pride because when I went to school there, it was a D2 school. I mean, they would have played Wayne State and UNK. Yep. And then about, let's see, almost 20 years ago, early aughts. Is that what we call that decade? I never know what to call that decade. The 2000s.
I don't think about it. I just acknowledge it. Maybe it's just the 2000s.
Just the 2000s.
Because now it's the 2010s.
It's weird. Anyway, they made the move to D1, and at the time, people in the great state of South Dakota thought, this is crazy. We can't compete with the likes of Nebraska and who else. And, but lo and behold, they've always been a really good basketball school. Mm-hmm. Within the early years where they were eligible for the NCAA tournament, both the men and women made the NCAA tournament. The women go every year and win about every year, win a game in that NCAA tournament. They are a force. Like, they are a top 25 women's basketball team. The men, make March Madness about every other year.
Right.
Which is pretty good.
It also helped when they had a Nebraska native as well.
Mike Dom.
Couple of years ago, Western Nebraska native.
And then Baylor Shireman, Aurora, Nebraska. So they've had some really outstanding Nebraska kids. And then the football team has had a bunch of Nebraska guys. Yeah. And actually, Dan Jackson, the current coach of the Jacks, is a Nebraska guy. And he's heavily recruiting those guys who maybe once upon a time would have walked on in Lincoln. Yeah. Are now wearing blue and starting, and they've put a number of guys in the NFL. If you know guys like Tucker Kraft, Dallas Goedert.
That's right. That's right.
You might have these guys on your fantasy team, and they went to my college. And it's to show you how small a state South Dakota is. It's kind of like Nebraska. We're like, you kind of think everybody knows everybody, don't they?
Yep.
I mean, Nebraska, you talk about like 6 degrees of separation. Not in Nebraska, right? Usually you can talk about any one person and you probably know somebody in common.
Yeah. Somebody's like, oh, wait a second. I think I know that guy or
Right.
that gal. Yeah.
Right. So South Dakota's that way. Anyway, I had met, his name is John Stiglmeyer. He's the legendary, he's kind of the Tom Osborne of South Dakota State. He's the guy who won took the team, won the national championship on the 1AA level, or they call it FCS these days. Got to get fancy, right? And so I had met the guy at an event in Grand Island, and I actually, years ago when I was in college, had run cameras for his like coaches show. And I'm like, you don't remember me because I'm just some guy, but I remember you. And he's like, well, here's my phone number. Give me a call next time you're in town. You don't, I mean, like, would you expect Tom Osborne to give you his phone number?
Absolutely not.
Right.
Not Jacob. Maybe me, but
there's
maybe
people
not
that
Jacob.
are more qualified than I, but
Just kidding.
So anyway, so the last time we were in town, I give the guy a call. He said, well, let me know when you and the family are around. We'll talk, you know. So anyway, he came up, he personally gave us a tour of the whole stadium, the football facilities, the offices. They've got this really cool video wall where like all the guys have been drafted are playing on a loop and like highlights. Here's Dallas Goedert in the Super Bowl. And it's like, dang, this is like really cool. Took us in the weight room and the practice facility and let my kids run out on the field and pose for selfies. And here's the NCAA championship trophy and the Dakota marker and all this stuff.
Nice.
So anyway, bringing that back full circle. So when I got tickets to Ord, I said, I'm going to be wearing blue in Ord. We show up at the game. We sat in the administration and the teachers section. So I was surrounded by Ord Chanticleers.
Nice.
What color do they wear in Ord?
Yeah, also red as
Also
well.
red.
Also red.
Also red. So we wore blue, and we were sitting right behind the baseline, right behind the serve. And so I was getting texts throughout the game, people watching on public TV saying, you're wearing the wrong color. I'm seeing you. Laney Choboy just had a nice serve, and you weren't smiling there. No, we were cheering on both teams. It was a good time.
Well, Steve, we are really excited to have you on board here at KRVN and the NRRA. Again, Steve White is our new KRVN Farm Director, starting officially today, and looking forward to this new chapter. You'll be seeing him out and about doing a lot of different great things.
Absolutely. Hope to get out and about every which way. So.
All right, that is, again, Steve White, who is just introduced as our new KRVN Farm Director, joining us here as of today. He'll be sticking around for a minute as we'll talk about some of the livestock numbers in the world of livestock and our livestock update coming up in 1 minute on KRVN. .30 now here at KRVN, which means it is time for our daily livestock updates. Glad to have you along. New KRVN Farm Director Steve White joining us here in the studio. All right, Steve, you are the man in the know. I know you are very well connected before your time coming here to KRVN, being in ag media for quite some time across Nebraska.
Yeah.
What an interesting time for livestock producers.
Kidding. Yeah, I mean, you look at what is going on now, and I think the things that we sometimes forget about, but as consumer demand continues to run strong, people. I went to the store the other day to buy the big 10-pound chub of ground beef, and like the price, it's like, do I need a second mortgage here? But I still bought the product because you can't live without ground beef. Yeah. But it's really cool because consumer demand is strong. And in fact, people sometimes say, why are we exporting or importing cattle in right now? Well, we need that. We have such a lean product here we have a great product here, and carcass weights have gone up actually. But we also sometimes need to actually import so we can have that ground product. And there's so many dynamics, and then obviously the drought, and are we going to rebuild the herd? But yeah, thank God for that cattle sector, because the crop guys, they're not liking our numbers so much these days. So we're giving them some bright spots here.
And it's interesting because if you are selling cattle right now, you in particular are loving it at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's, like I said, economically, that's great for small town rural Nebraska when our cattle producers are doing well. That helps everybody out.
Yeah, definitely. It's also the thing that I found interesting is more and more how the conversation kind of moves and everything seems like things are going bad, but then you have, there was a record broken at this auction and at this auction.
Sale barn, they posted this number and everybody's eyes pop out and right.
And that continues to happen, by the way. You would think it would be kind of slowing down, but it seems like kind of no matter what you're taking to the livestock markets at this point. From people you've talked to, Steve, how long of a trend is this going to be?
Boy, yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, Jacob, what do you think about that? That's hard, isn't it?
No, it's definitely kind of a weird one because the conversation since we'll call it May 1 or March 1 rather, when the tariff talks really kind of ramped up and went crazy, that threw everybody for a loop. And then as those kind of continue to loom, makes you wonder how long that conversation is going to continue. The China conversation improving would make you think that maybe they'll come down a little bit because if China starts to buy, that would kind of pull everything down. Drought, you pull one lever, it moves another, and then to get everything to move, who knows where it's going to go. But obviously you feel like a little bit good of it for at the moment, as what we saw last week was a bounce back after things were down.
Yeah, there's some profitability to be had right now in the cattle sector, so that's good. But yeah, like you say, there's so many uncertainties right now. And who knows? Maybe tomorrow we announce some new trade deal. Maybe we're going to send a bunch of beef to whatever country.
Yeah. You never know because it changes truly from day to day. All right, good stuff. We'll keep an eye on all of that. But let's take a look at our livestock numbers here today. What are we seeing, Jacob?
As we wrap up what we saw last week, business started to develop Wednesday last week, which is earlier than what we've seen, but there's been some cleanup trade on Thursday and Friday of last week as well. Southern Live Trade was marked at $214, mostly higher than that $214 at $218, which is $5 to $6 higher than the prior week's weighted average. Northern Dress Deals had a range of $340 to $356, but mostly closer to $350. That is $8 higher than the previous week's weighted average. It'll be interesting to see just what the weekly weighted averages will be as the summary reports are released later today, as new record highs will likely be set in most areas. Taking a look at where we saw the weekly average for box beef cutouts as well as box beef cuts, choice was up $11 on the average, select was up $6.64 on the average. The choice select spread average was $20.36. That's up $4.36. As we take a look at this week, nothing's really happening. It's a Monday. Everyone's taking stock of what they have. We'll likely see trade develop later, maybe on Wednesday like we saw last week, but potentially later in the week as well. That does it for a look at livestock here on 880 KRVN.